Let's hit 10,000 subscribers and I will give away $100 or a creepy doll to one lucky subscriber each week. In the bustling world of fast food service, routines were essential. The employees at Benny's Burger Barn had their set patterns, clocking in, flipping burgers, and serving fries like a well-oiled machine. But among them, there was one anomaly: Jimmy. He had a peculiar way of going about his work, setting him apart from the rest. Jimmy was always the first to arrive at Benny's, no matter the weather or the ungodly hour. His colleagues couldn't fathom why he insisted on getting there so early. Some whispered that he might be trying to impress the boss, while others dismissed it as mere eccentricity. But there was more to Jimmy than met the eye. Dressed in clothes that seemed to have survived a food fight, Jimmy's appearance was far from the pristine uniforms of his co-workers. His hair was a perpetual tangle, as though it hadn't met a comb in years. But it wasn't just his unkempt exterior that set him apart. It was the peculiar odor that clung to him like an unwanted guest. As the sun rose over Benny's Burger Barn, the question lingered in the minds of the employees. What was it about Jimmy that made him such an oddity in their well-ordered fast food world? Little did they know that the answers to their suspicions were about to unfold most horrifyingly. Chapter 2. Messy attire, unkempt hair. Every day at Benny's Burger Barn, the employees donned their crisp uniforms, their hair neatly tied back, and their appearance reflected the brand's cleanliness and professionalism. But Jimmy defied these expectations. While his colleagues presented themselves with care, he seemed indifferent to his appearance. Jimmy's attire was a patchwork of stains and wrinkles, as if he had never bothered to change his clothes. His shirt bore the splatters of countless condiments, and his once white apron had turned a greasy shade of gray. The other employees couldn't help but exchange glances when he shuffled in, a living contradiction to the fastidious standards of their workplace. His hair was another point of contention. While everyone else adhered to the strict rule of keeping their hair tidy and contained, Jimmy's locks cascaded haphazardly, as though they had never met the embrace of a comb. It was as if he reveled in his unkempt appearance, a silent rebellion against the norms of Benny's Burger Barn. To his co-workers, it was baffling. How could someone disregard the basic standards of personal hygiene and presentation in a place where food safety and cleanliness are paramount? Little did they know that Jimmy's disregard for appearance was just the tip of the iceberg, and his secrets went far deeper than his disheveled exterior. Chapter 3. A Pungent Presence. While Jimmy's unkempt attire and disheveled hair were certainly strange, it was his distinctive odor that left the most lasting impression on those who worked alongside him at Benny's Burger Barn. A noxious combination of sweat, grease, and something far more sinister clung to him like a malevolent aura. It was a stench that permeated the air, forcing his colleagues to hold their breath when he passed by. The smell was so overpowering that customers began to complain. Some questioned the hygiene standards of the restaurant, while others simply vowed never to return. The management had no choice but to address the issue, but confronting Jimmy about his hygiene was a challenge no one wanted to undertake. Whenever someone tried to broach the subject with Jimmy, he would simply brush it off with a dismissive wave of his hand and a muttered excuse. He claimed that he had a condition that caused excessive perspiration and that he couldn't help it. His co-workers were left to suffer in silence, their nostrils assaulted by the pungent cloud that seemed to follow him wherever he went. The more time they spent in Jimmy's company, the more his peculiar odor became an unavoidable part of their daily lives. It was a foul presence that clung to their clothes, invaded their senses, and gnawed at their patience. Little did they know, this oppressive scent was just one layer of the mystery that surrounded their odd colleague. Chapter 4. The Garbage Duty Obsession. As if his peculiar attire and offensive odor weren't enough, Jimmy had one more idiosyncrasy that set him apart from the rest of Benny's Burger Barn crew. He had an unwavering obsession with garbage duty. While most employees viewed taking out the trash as a necessary but mundane task, Jimmy treated it like a sacred ritual. Without fail, Jimmy would volunteer for the garbage duty at the beginning and end of each shift. It was as though he derived a strange sense of satisfaction from hauling the heavy bags of refuse to the dumpster out back. His co-workers found this behavior bizarre, but they were more than happy to let him handle the dirty work. What puzzled them even more was the fact that Jimmy never allowed anyone else to take out the trash. If a colleague offered to help or take over the chore, he would become strangely defensive, insisting that he had it under control. It was as if he had a personal attachment to the garbage that defied explanation. The other employees couldn't understand why Jimmy was so possessive about a task that they considered menial. But little did they realize that this obsession with the garbage duty was the key to unraveling the unsettling mysteries that surrounded their enigmatic coworker. It was a puzzle that one of them was determined to solve. Chapter 5. Tom's suspicion grows. Among the employees at Benny's Burger Barn, Tom was the one who couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that something was terribly wrong with Jimmy. It wasn't just the messy attire, the unkempt hair, or the overpowering odor that made him suspicious. It was the way Jimmy clung to the garbage duty as if his life depended on it. Tom had always been the observant type, and his intuition told him that there was more to Jimmy's behavior than met the eye. He began to watch his coworker more closely, noting the way Jimmy's eyes darted around nervously when he thought no one was looking, and how he always seemed to have something to hide. One evening, after their shift had ended, Tom decided to follow Jimmy. He had to know what was going on. As he trailed his coworker through the dimly lit streets, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. It was as if he was delving into a mystery that he might not be prepared to unravel. Jimmy led Tom to a desolate alley behind the restaurant, where the overflowing dumpster awaited its nightly ritual. As Jimmy began to lift the lid, Tom watched in silent anticipation. What he saw next would haunt him forever, confirming his darkest suspicions about their odd colleague. Chapter 6. A Trail of Secrets. In the dimly lit alley behind Benny's Burger Barn, Tom's heart pounded like a drum as he watched Jimmy wrestle with the heavy lid of the overflowing dumpster. With a sickening creak, the lid was lifted, revealing a grotesque sight that sent a shiver down Tom's spine. Among the discarded food containers and empty condiment packets were unmistakable shapes, human limbs. Tom's breath caught in his throat as he realized the horrifying truth. Jimmy was disposing of something far more sinister than food scraps in the dumpster. The shock of the revelation was almost too much to bear. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the macabre scene unfolding before him. As Jimmy hurriedly dumped a bag into the dumpster and closed the lid, Tom knew he had to gather evidence. He snapped a quick photo with his phone, capturing the damning image of the severed limbs hidden among the garbage. It was a piece of a puzzle that was becoming increasingly disturbing. But Tom couldn't confront Jimmy just yet. He needed more proof. He decided to discreetly gather information, hoping to uncover the extent of Jimmy's gruesome secret. Little did he know that delving deeper into the mysteries of his coworker would lead him down a nightmarish path of horror and intrigue. Chapter 7. The Dark Discovery. As Tom delved deeper into his investigation of Jimmy, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was unraveling a web of darkness that stretched far beyond his worst nightmares. The photograph he had taken in the alley was just the beginning. He started to dig into Jimmy's background, searching for any clues that might shed light on the bizarre and unsettling discoveries he had made. What he found was deeply unsettling. Jimmy had a history of moving from one fast food restaurant to another, never staying in one place for too long. Co-workers from his previous jobs described him as odd and reclusive, always keeping to himself. But there were also whispers of strange occurrences and unsettling incidents linked to the restaurants where Jimmy had worked. Tom couldn't ignore the eerie pattern he was uncovering. He decided to discreetly gather information, hoping to uncover the extent of Jimmy's unusual behavior. Little did he know that delving deeper into the mysteries of his coworker would lead him down a nightmarish path of fear and intrigue, revealing shocking truths that defied explanation. Chapter 8. Unearthing Jimmy's horrifying deeds. The unsettling history Tom had uncovered about Jimmy sent shivers down his spine, but he couldn't turn away from the disturbing puzzle that was taking shape. It was as though Jimmy had carried with him a dark cloud of mystery and dread throughout his previous employment at various fast food establishments. Tom felt a growing responsibility to uncover the truth behind his enigmatic co-worker. As the news of the macabre findings in the dumpster at Benny's Burger Barn spread, the authorities launched a massive manhunt for Jimmy. Tom's involvement in the case intensified, and he was haunted by the knowledge that he had worked alongside a man responsible for unspeakable horrors. The guilt and fear gnawed at him, but he was determined to help bring Jimmy to justice and find answers to the questions that haunted him. Investigators began to piece together the disturbing pattern of Jimmy's movements, and it became clear that he had meticulously covered his tracks, leaving no trace of his victims or his own identity. It was as if he had operated in the shadows, concealing his true nature behind the facade of a seemingly ordinary fast food worker. The hunt for Jimmy intensified, and the community remained on edge, gripped by the fear that he might still be out there, hiding in plain sight. The question loomed large. Where was Jimmy, and what drove him to commit such unsettling acts? The answers remained elusive, buried beneath layers of darkness and deception, as Tom and the investigators continued their relentless pursuit of the truth. Chapter 9. The Grisly Truth. Unveiled. As the manhunt for Jimmy intensified, Tom and the investigators delved deeper into the unsettling mysteries that surrounded their enigmatic co-worker. It became apparent that Jimmy had left a trail of fear and confusion in every place he had worked. Co-workers from his previous jobs described him as an odd and reclusive figure. Strange occurrences and unsettling incidents seemed to follow in his wake. Tom's determination to uncover the truth only grew stronger as he learned more about Jimmy's unsettling past. He couldn't rest until he understood the full extent of his co-worker's dark secrets and the horrors that had been hidden behind the scenes at Benny's Burger Barn. The authorities sifted through the evidence with meticulous care, piecing together the fragments of a chilling puzzle. The horrifying truth began to emerge, revealing a pattern of malevolent actions and shocking depravity that defied explanation. It was a nightmare that had played out in the shadows, hidden behind the facade of a seemingly ordinary fast food worker. As the investigation drew closer to its conclusion, the community remained gripped by fear and unease, haunted by the possibility that Jimmy might still be at large. The question loomed large. Where was Jimmy, and what had driven him to commit such unspeakable acts? The answers were both chilling and elusive, casting a long shadow over the once ordinary fast food restaurant that had become the epicenter of a horrifying revelation. Chapter 10. Shadows of a Dark Legacy. The manhunt for Jimmy reached a relentless climax as authorities closed in on their elusive target. The community remained on edge, anxiously awaiting the resolution of the chilling case that had disrupted their lives. Tom, now deeply entwined in the investigation, couldn't escape the lingering sense of dread that had settled over Benny's Burger Barn. Finally, the breakthrough came. Jimmy was apprehended, his dark secrets laid bare for the world to see. As the evidence against him was presented, a shroud of horror descended upon the courtroom. The stories of his bizarre behavior, the gruesome discoveries in the dumpster, and his unsettling past sent shockwaves through the audience. In the end, Jimmy was found guilty of heinous crimes beyond imagination. He was sentenced to a life of imprisonment, ensuring that he would never again pose a threat to society. But the shadows of his dark legacy continued to haunt the memories of those who had crossed paths with him. The community, scarred by the revelation of the horrors that had unfolded in their midst, sought solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. Benny's Burger Barn, once a symbol of fast food normalcy, became a somber reminder that darkness could lurk in even the most ordinary of places. The questions lingered. What had driven Jimmy to commit such unspeakable acts? And could anyone ever truly understand the depths of his malevolence? It was a chilling tale that would forever haunt the collective consciousness of those who had witnessed the sinister secrets hidden behind the counter of a seemingly innocuous fast food joint. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for me and like this video. Keep it creepy and see you next time.